Welcome to the unmounted exercise for today for the Riders Reset Challenge. I'm so glad to have you here. So this one's gonna be a really good one. I hear from a lot of riders that they are tight in their hips. Well, today's video is gonna be 3 different exercises or 3 different stretches that you can do to increase your mobility in your hips. Now, when we're riding, we don't necessarily want the hips to be so loose where we're sort of flinging ourselves all over the saddle, but we want to keep that stability, but feeling like we are able to follow the horse's motion is super important. So the first one that I want to go through today is child's pose. Now, if you do have some knee discomfort, you might need to modify this or just go less deep into the pose. So, or you can also use a blanket. So if it hurts to have your knees or your ankles, you can lay the blanket on top of the yoga mat if that makes it a little bit more comfortable. But going into child's pose, what I'm gonna do is sit my knees pretty wide, so almost on the edge of the mat. My toes are together, my big toes are touching, and I'm just gonna use my hands and push back and let my head go towards the mat. And what you'll wanna do is just breathe into that motion. So you'll find that the more that you're just doing some slow breaths, the further you might be able to go into it. Again, if you're feeling discomfort, you can always support yourself and you don't have to go back quite as far. But you should be feeling it here in your hip flexors. I feel it in my low back. Sometimes I even feel it in my shoulders. And you can go even less into it if you need to. So if you just even want to just stay here. If this is too much, do less. We never want to push anything or hit the point of just being uncomfortable. It's more just getting a little bit more into it as we become more flexible. So again, this is child's pose. Really great for loosening up your hips, your arms, your upper back, your lower back. I love child's pose. So that's your first stretch for today. The second one we're gonna do is the hip flexor. Now, you've probably heard me mention this before, but I'm a runner, so the hip flexors are usually pretty tight for me. So I won't be able to go too deep into this one. And again, if you have discomfort with being on your knee like this, you can put another pad down, put a blanket down. I'll do that to just add a little bit more cushion to my knee. So what I'm gonna do is have my front leg bent at about a 90-degree angle. And I'm gonna have this also, we're at another 90-degree angle. And what we're gonna do is just slowly, and you probably won't almost be able to see anything, but slowly press into our hips. And what we're trying to do is open up to our hip flexor. So right here, again, just breathe into it, hold the stretch. Try not to push. If it feels like too much, come back. I usually like to put my hand on my other knee to balance. I don't necessarily want to be pressing into that knee, but just to kind of help me balance so I can focus on feeling the stretch. And then let's switch sides. And again, you'll probably find that one side feels a bit tighter than the other. So just something to observe, but breathe into it. And feel just the muscle relax. Try to really focus on the area that we are stretching out. So try not to let your mind wander and think about your to-do list or what you have going on the rest of the day. Just try to be really present in thinking about stretching out this hip flexor. All right, that feels great. And again, just do what's comfortable. You don't have to hold this as long as I am. Start with just holding it for a little bit, maybe come out of it. That's another thing you can do, is if you feel like you're getting a little stuck, just sort of come in and out of the stretch. And you might even find that this is easier for you to move into it if it's a little bit more dynamic like that. So that was our second stretch of the day for a little bit more hip mobility, is the hip flexor. The third one I'm going to do, I'm actually going to lay it down on the mat for. And this one you'll want to be really careful if you have hip problems, if you have a low back issue. This one can be quite a bit, so I can show you some different modifications, but personally it's one of my favorite. What I'll do is lay on my back, and I'll start with both my legs straight out. And then I'll start with my right side, catch my right knee with my right arm. And then what I'm gonna do is rotate my pelvis using my right hand here for stability, holding my left hand right above my right knee. And I'm just gonna sort of let that guide me into the stretch. This is one I do have to sit in for a minute to just let it stretch me out. Again, I do have pretty tight hips and low back from running and some of the work that I do. So this one feels great. So just sort of stretch into that for as long as it feels comfortable. If it feels like too much and you're not able to go, some people can go all the way to the floor. I'm not quite to that level. But even if it's just sitting on your back and crossing over like this, if you feel that, that's a great place to stop. You can always just sort of gently start to guide, but just do what is most comfortable for you. And then sometimes I'll take my knees, give a little squeeze, and then I'll go to the other side. And this side's actually a little bit more difficult for me to turn, so I'll just do what's comfortable. But I do try to stack the hips so that one hip is on top of the other, even if my leg can't go all the way to the floor. You can add to the stretch by holding out the other arm and looking that direction. You feel it. I feel it even more in the top of my glute when I do that. And again, just stay in the pose as long as is comfortable for you. We don't ever want to push anything too far and cause more injury. It's just do what you can, what feels comfortable, and you can always work into it. Again, you can incorporate these stretches with any other of the unmounted exercises we're going to be doing through the Rider's Reset. So it could be part of your routine to just do these simple little stretches. It's a great time to just do it for a few minutes while you're watching TV in the evenings, or for a few moments in the morning. In the morning, it can be really beneficial to just sort of get your blood flowing. Just spend a few minutes doing these stretches, and I think you'll find your hip mobility will feel a lot better, probably in and out of the saddle. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I'll be back tomorrow with your next exercise. Happy riding.